nothing but the dog in me.
One must die, chase the cat.
Good evening and welcome to Posse Presents, where I made sure I stopped singing before you could hear me. I can talk your ear off, I cannot sing. Anyway, here we are once again. It's cold, bring those pets inside. It's no joke out there. My car lock was frozen tonight between the rain and the cold. You know, it's cold out. Bring the pets inside. That's all I'm going to say. Nice to see our crew member Nancy here tonight for the first time in forever. She's had some health issues and it's kept her on the sidelines. So welcome back tonight. Glad to see you. Gonna start tonight with a story about a dog that caught my eye. You know, I posted this week that I'm really ashamed to be a member of the human race. You know, things pop up in my news feed on Facebook. This is where I get a lot of my stuff. And, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 stories about, you know, animal abuse and things that people are just doing to these poor animals who deserve so much better. The first story isn't necessarily, well, yeah, it falls under the abuse category if you really think about it. But it's just unbelievable how people disregard the lives and souls of animals. It's just unbelievable to me. Can we get the first picture of, well, no, wait, hold on a second. Bubbles is, I want to get there with you because it's kind of like shocking. Bubbles is a 5-year-old Neapolitan Mastiff. She was picked up as a stray. And you're really not going to believe your eyes when you see how she was found. Zach, now let's see that first picture of Bubbles, please. Kid's probably ready to smack me for making him go back and forth. Yeah, this is Bubbles. She was found with this tumor, unbelievable size of a tumor on this poor dog. It's called an MLO, and I'm not going to even try to pronounce the actual medical terminology because I'm sure I will fail. It's a slow-growing tumor that affects the skull bones. Unbelievable the size of this thing. I mean, that pink on the very top of that tumor is her eye. You know, I can't imagine the discomfort that she would have to be going through. And this is how she was picked up as a stray. Now, as I said, this is purportedly a slow-growing tumor, so really she was living somewhere and this was happening, and I don't know, what did you do? Just open your door and let her go and say, peace, this is, you know, the best I can do for you? It's just unbelievable to me that this dog was let to get in this condition. Let's get the next picture. She had surgery to let's do the after. Bubbles had surgery to remove the tumor. It was risky, but she was worth it. Noah's Ark's rescue stepped up to help Bubbles and you know, take care of all of her needs, and bless their hearts for that. This is Bubbles after the surgery. The tumor itself weighed 8.81 pounds, if you can imagine that. You know, her head was tilted one way, now it's kind of tilted the other because she's used to having to compensate for it. You know, Bubbles herself, 30 pounds underweight because she couldn't even eat properly. The tumor actually impaired her eating process. But Bubbles is now gaining weight and working on, you know, putting herself back together, more or less, as a dog. Her eye is sewn shut, and what I read was the plan was to keep that shut for a couple of weeks to protect it, more or less. They will recheck it and open it and see if the eye is even viable. If it's not, they are going to have to remove it, which really shouldn't be a big deal for her because she didn't have use of it anyway. I mean, you saw where it was located. I can't imagine that the eye was functioning the way an eye should function, all the way stretched out with that tumor. But she will have chemo because that particular type of cancer, tumor, was a cancer. And, you know, I just can't imagine what life was like for her. Zach, let's get the collage of her with one of her caregivers. Bubbles apparently is just a good-natured, sweet, sweet girl, which, you know, it's hard to imagine. You know, people get cranky when they're not feeling well and going through stuff, and animals can too, but animals are so far more forgiving and loving than people are, you know. I mean, animals don't deserve what people dole out to them. They really don't. Let's get the shot of the after her surgery. I mean, it hurts to look at her incisions, and yep. Excuse me. This is, you know, days after her surgery. You can see how she's all stitched up. I can't imagine how her skin was just like so stretched out. I don't know if they had to remove any skin to put her back together. You know, it looks like her face is a little crooked, but I imagine that's the least of her problems at this point. That whole slice up her face just hurts to look at. I can't imagine, you know, as in spite of all that, how much better she must feel not having to carry that thing around on her face anymore. I mean, it's just hard to imagine how she survived and how she could still be such a sweet, sweet dog. Anything you read about her, she's just such a good girl, and she's so happy and good-natured. And, you know, certainly I hope that she continues her recovery. It would be really great if she doesn't lose her eye, but, you know, animals are resilient, and if she does, like I said, she wasn't really using it anyway. And the place where I've been getting most of my information is a Facebook page called Foster Mamas. And, you know, it's a pretty cool page because you do see a lot of posts about, you know, people who foster and, you know, all of the wonderful things that foster people do. And, you know, Bubbles is very fortunate to have Noah's Arks have stepped up for her, because who knows how she would have ended up. I mean, it's just unbelievable to think that she survived with that and you know, was let to get that bad. But anyway, I will take the camera back for a moment, and the next story is one of abuse. And, you know, I can't stress enough how sickening it is to see this over and over and over. You know, you wonder, just like with all the lost dogs that keep coming up, is it because there are more cases of animal abuse, or is it because they become so much more in the spotlight through people sharing on Facebook and social networking? This one is really difficult. There was a pit bull in South Carolina that was dragged behind a pickup truck. Apparently the rope broke, or who knows what her fate would have been. Let's get the picture of the first picture, or I guess it's the only picture, because even I couldn't stand to look at some of the pictures. Let's see Andra Grace, Zach. This poor girl, she's got the sweetest face ever. And again, a loving and sweet disposition that you can't ever imagine how somebody could do this to any animal. But it was reported that she had recently had puppies. She was emaciated. And one of the pictures that I'm sparing all of you is the fact that, separate and apart from having been dragged behind this truck, someone pulled out her toenails. And there is a very graphic picture of that on the internet that just is so hard to look at.
I think I might have made a boo-boo. I think I forgot to put one of the pictures in.
Oh, well, if you can think of which one it is, it's
The last one, Jane's LOL.
oh, I kind of needed that. All right, well, all right, Zach is telling me about a little technical difficulty we've got going on. All right, so Stella, the poor, he just threw me so off. I'm going to kill this kid. As much as I love him. Andra Grace, they tracked down some of her puppies. And of course, her puppies were too young to be away from her, which, you know, again, you really got to ask yourself, what are people doing out there? But they were tracked down, and some of them were found, and they are now safe. There are others who were purportedly sold, and they are trying to track down those puppies as well. But at least one of her pups was very, very sick and hospitalized and being treated. And, you know, it's just, there's so many layers to this story. You know, they figured out who originally had her. You know, she was given away as a puppy. They located the people who have the dog who had Andra Grace's litter, and you know, I guess they're working on spaying and neutering any dogs in that house, so at least those people don't end up having more puppies. But the good news is that the monster who did this has been found, and there are 3 other people being sought in connection with this atrocity. Apparently this guy, who I'm not even going to glorify him by giving his name or showing his picture, has a long history of violent crimes and a prior arrest for animal cruelty. You know, not shocking considering, you know, somebody would do this. Apparently they're trying to get the charges upgraded from a misdemeanor to a felony, and there are people that they're asking everyone to contact in regards to that, and the email addresses are on the Facebook page that was set up for her, and that Facebook page is Justice for Andra Grace, Pit Bull Dragged by a Truck. And the good news is that she is improving, and she's getting better every day, even though she has a long road ahead of her. You know, her injuries, there are very graphic pictures on the Facebook page, and I don't suggest you look at them unless you can truly stomach it. And you know what, even if you don't think you can, maybe you should, because this is what's out there, people. This is what people are doing to animals, and it's completely unacceptable. There's just no way in the world that this is right or acceptable. And you know, if you know anything about someone abusing an animal, you really, really should step up, because this is what ends up happening. You know, this wasn't like a Craigslist type of thing, which is something that I preach against heartily. But you know, it's still, you don't know who you're handing an animal off to, and you don't know what's going to happen to that animal in the world. You know, even if you think you're giving it to a good home, if that person's not stable and doesn't keep the animal and gives it to somebody else, this is what could happen. And it's really sickening. And we definitely have to give a shout out to a group called SNAR, S-N-A-R-R, Animal Rescue Northeast, because they have taken on Andra Grace and the care for her, which, you know, is extensive. They are taking care of her puppies, and you know, they're doing a fabulous job of trying to pick up the pieces, and there are many pieces to be picked up here. Like I said, there's just so many layers. You know, I kept reading, and I was like, my mouth just kept dropping open with all of the information and the updates of finding, you know, where she came from, the people who had her, what happened, the timeline, the sequence, the whole bit about the puppies. I mean, this poor dog, I can't imagine, dragged behind a pickup truck. If that rope didn't break, really, what was going to be the end for her? Definitely not at least being put into the care of loving people who are trying to help her and make her whole. And, you know, she's another dog they report just is a beautiful soul who is her tail wags every time they come to see her. And, you know, how can a dog be so loving and forgiving and still interested in human affection? It's amazing to me. Now, I'll take the camera back, and here's where our glitch comes in. I was going to talk about two dogs, well, I'm still going to talk about them, who Zach said we don't have the pictures in the board, so that's a moot point, but I can still talk about them. And the pictures are posted on my personal Facebook page, and I'll make sure they get up on the Pound Posse Presents page to make up for it. But there are the two dogs, Jane and Stella, who are sisters, and they've been in boarding since 2007, which is unbelievable to think of. That's a very long time. It's almost 7 years, you know. People need to remember that boarding needs to be a short-term solution, just like fostering should be. They love attention. They need to be the only dogs because they have become so bonded that they really don't tolerate other dogs very well. And that can happen. And, you know, it kind of reminds me of Bonnie and Clyde, because I'm not going to really talk too much about that, because that ended up being a real nightmare at the end of their freedom ride. But anyway, Stella and Jane need to be the only two dogs in the home. And that's like looking for a needle in a haystack. I get that, but it can happen. And, you know, after all this time, if the picture looks like it's just they're sitting in a pound, you know, I mean, it's just kennels and concrete. And that's A, no way for any dog to live, and B, no way for a dog to live long term. 7 years almost in boarding, and you've got to figure how old must they be. They didn't look real young, they don't look real old, but they're being deprived of an entire life of love. You know, at least when you're fostering an animal, they're in a home environment, and they're getting the life that an animal should have, even though it's only a temporary home. People seem to forget a lot of the times about these dogs who get pulled and put in foster homes. Definitely forget about dogs that are put in boarding. And, again, fosters and especially boarding, it should be a temporary solution. Yes, it does. Sometimes it's a last-ditch effort to save a dog. It's a last-ditch effort when there's no place for that dog to go. But, boarding definitely isn't home. There's people who go and walk them any number of times a week, and that's a good thing. They're getting attention. They're being loved. But, it's not the right environment. It never ceases to amaze me how, people will forget. They write off the dogs that they see getting into somewhere that's not death row, and they're, on to the next. But you really do need to keep networking, even after a dog is pulled, and no matter where they are, in a foster home or in boarding, because it's not home. Foster homes, if they are with a dog for a long time, or a cat, or whatever they're fostering, it's tying up that home, which can be used for another animal. Again, boarding is not the life for any animal. It's just really only barely steps up from being in the pound. So pay attention, go check out the Pound Posse Presents Facebook page. Check out these two dogs. Please do what you can. There is a number that you can call if there's anything you can do, or if you're interested in taking them on. I'm quite sure that a foster home would even be better than what they're living in now. And the number's 252-299-0976. Once again, that's 252-299-0976. Do something if you can. there's got to be a solution for these girls. They are actually quite beautiful. Sorry we don't have the pictures. Things happen. But that's, you know, that's really what we need to focus on is getting every animal home. And, you know, it's holiday time, and just before I left the house, I saw that there are 12 urgent dogs in New Haven. You know, 12 is a lot. And I didn't really see how much time they have or what the situation is. But when New Haven posts urgent, that means that they are. So think about the fact that this is holiday time, and I know that everybody's busy doing their own thing and making a big deal about Christmas. Yeah, I'm a Grinch and I don't like Christmas, but whatever. You know, people are busy making their preparations and doing their shopping and getting ready for company, and this is one of those times a year where the animals in shelters are languishing once again, and their lives are more at risk than usual because nobody's thinking about them. You know, don't go out and buy a puppy for Christmas. It's not the thing to do. Adopt an animal from a shelter, because that's where you're really going to make the difference. That's the thing to do. These animals' lives are at risk. They're, you know, homeless. And the best thing you can do, the best gift you can give to an animal is to give it a good home for the holiday, and not just for the holiday, but for life, because an animal should be for life. And if more people would take that approach, there would be far less animals languishing in shelters and dying. You know, it's that time of year where, yeah, you're all caught up in your thing. Just like summertime, people want to go on vacation and, you know, they don't want to do anything. They don't want to make the commitment. You can open your home to a new animal. It's the right thing to do. If you're thinking about adopting, go to your local shelter and, you know, make a dog's day, make a cat's day, make their lives. It'll enrich yours. It'll save theirs. You know, there's a poster going around of the 12 urgent dogs in New Haven, and I did post that as well on the Pound Posse Presents Facebook page. So you can go check them out, share it, network for them, network for all the dogs that you see this time of year, because it really is, again, that time of year where animals are just, they're not getting the attention that they need, and, you know, it's quite dangerous for them because it's going to cost their lives. Going to spend my next few minutes once again preaching about safety for your pets during the holidays. You know, Christmas safety, there's a few more layers to what the dangers are for your pets. You know, I've preached before, you know, you're going to have company, you know, people have food everywhere, you've got alcoholic beverages, you've got kids running around. The best and kindest thing you can probably do is, you know, put up a baby gate in a room that the dog is comfortable in, keep cats behind closed doors, you know, eliminate, not to seclude them from the family and activities, but eliminate the temptation for them to get into things that they shouldn't, because they don't know they shouldn't. You know, you've got guests coming over who maybe are snacking on hors d'oeuvres or something and puts a plate down, and there's maybe you had chicken wings and there's bones. You know, there's so many dangerous things that can happen. You don't want your dog to start eating bones. You don't want your dog to eat any of the foods that are dangerous for them. And you can't rely on your guests who aren't pet savvy to know any better. And of course your pet's not going to know any better, and it's a temptation. So who ends up being in the doghouse, quite literally, but the dog for doing what comes naturally, and, oh, look, food, here you go, I'm going to have some. You know, there's also the whole thing where people are coming and going. You know, your door might not get closed. People might not be savvy to, you know, don't let the cat out, don't let the dog out. So just prevent it from happening. You know, then you've also got that whole thing about opening presents for Christmas. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing, but then you've got wrapping paper, and you've got tissue paper, and you've got actual presents that, you know, if you've got a puppy, might want to chew them up. One thing that's really, really dangerous is, you make your gifts all pretty and you've got ribbon and everything. Go ahead. The cat wants to play with the ribbon. And if a cat or a dog swallows ribbon, it can not be a beautiful thing when it gets caught up in the intestines and the animal has to have surgery and, all innocently because they wanted to play with something that you left right within their reach. It's the same thing with, the tinsel on the tree. There are so many dangers, and you really have to think it all through because you're responsible ultimately for your pet's safety. And yeah, I preach it like at every holiday, and you might get sick of hearing it. I get sick of saying it, but I figure I've got to, or I'm remiss in my duties because, if sometimes you don't even think, sometimes you need someone to bring things to your attention, and I guess in some small part that's what I kind of am here for. But keep your pet safe. Don't put them outside because you have company, because once again, it's cold outside, and there are now laws about that. Just pick a room. It doesn't have to be a closed door thing. For a cat, I would say, yeah, close the door. Maybe just put a note up. Don't open the door, people. For a dog, just put a gate up or, do something. Dogs tend to get nervous sometimes around a lot of activity. So, you can't even predict that with little kids running around the way they do, a dog might not think it might be fun to run around chasing nip heels or, react. You've got kids that want to pet, push, pull, play, torment, an animal, and they don't mean any harm, but an animal's going to defend itself. Remember, an animal's not going to think, it's going to react. So think of the big picture and, don't put anybody in harm's way for Christmas. And the same rules apply for New Year's. Anyway, don't forget tomorrow at Pet Playhouse, free pictures with Santa starting at noon. That should be awesome. Everybody gets a goodie bag and gets to hang out with some really cool people. And if you don't have a pet, go sit on Santa's lap anyway. What's the big difference? Anyway, we're just about out of time. I see all the hands waving and, everybody's trying to tell me to shut up, I guess. I don't know. But I guess we're going to have our credits and say peace, love, and dogs. Until next time, take care.